I think it's probably widely known now that dogs die in hot cars. We see it on posters, it's a big RSPCA message, and I think people mostly get it. And when we tragically see these incidents happening, mostly I think it's forgetfulness. People just don't realise how long they're going to be away from the car. But we see overheating or hyperthermia, which is the name that we would give to it, in wider circumstances than that, and it can depend on a lot of different factors. So we will get elderly dogs that don't move around so much, for instance, getting too hot just lying in the sun in a conservatory. And if you have any circulatory issues, so if you have heart disease or breathing problems, you're then nearer to the crisis point before you start, so it takes a lot less heat. So a thin, fit, young dog might need to get really hot before it has a problem. An old, overweight dog in the edge of heart failure, it won't take very much to get that dog too hot. And even going in a car and saying, no, open the windows. If you put a dog in a hot car and set off driving, and it's of a vulnerable type, so maybe it has small nostrils, maybe it doesn't breathe so well, maybe it's overweight, maybe it's very elderly, that dog could be in heat stroke before the car cools down. So one of the advice we give in the heat of summer is, if you've got air conditioning, is get the aircon on and get the car cooled before you put the dog in. And if you haven't, get the windows open, drive the car around a bit, get the core temperature of the car down before you put the dog in there. Different types and breeds will have different risk factors. Being overweight is a massive problem. It causes hugely increased risks of hyperthermia. There are thousands of reasons not to let your dog get fat, but a big one is its ability to cope with heat. And particularly as it gets older, because if its circulation is not so good, as I said, that increases it. So you get accumulative factors. You've got a dog that's overweight, that it's elderly, it's got circulatory problems, and very popular these days are dogs with short faces. We call them brachycephalic dogs. They do have some additional breathing difficulties, and sadly some of them more than others. If you've got small nostrils and you've got a very short face and you're making a lot of noise when you breathe, it's going to be hard to control your body temperature. Those dogs can go into a heat stroke walking up the street in a warm day. They don't need to be in a car, they don't need to be in a conservatory. So we do see heat stroke quite a bit over the summertime. What to do about it? Well, probably the quickest, simplest thing to do is to get them away from the source of heat and get them into a cool environment. What I'll then do is lay a blanket over them or a towel and wet that towel, because a dog is unable to sweat. One of the ways that we're going to keep our body temperature down is by sweating. So if you lay a tea towel over the body of the dog and you pour water on it, the heat of the dog's body will evaporate the water off the tea towel. It's in effect like sweating. Now, that is something to start with, but you need veterinary attention quickly. So you start these cooling procedures, maybe get a fan on them, get the car really cool, get them in the car with all the aircon on, and get to the vet pretty quick. Because if they're really struggling, we're going to need to intubate them, which means we're going to need to sedate or anaesthetize them to get a tube down to get oxygen into them. So the really critical ones really do need veterinary attention. So remove them from the source of the heat, begin to cool them down the best you can, get to the vet as soon as you can, because we may need to do something much more interventional to keep that dog alive. And it really is life-threatening if it's serious.